Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. Delighted to be joined here by Seamus Brady of the Play On GA podcast. For this one, we're going to be looking at all the bumper championship games that are on this weekend. There certainly is a bumper championship weekend when you look at all the matches that are on. I think there's 6 games on TV in total, 10 games in total to preview today. We've got provincial semi-finals happening in both Connacht and Munster. Obviously, Galway versus Roscommon. The big one there in Connacht. Obviously, New York making the trip to Sligo as well, which is a bit of a unique experience for them. And, of course, provincial quarterfinals in Leinster. Dublin will be kickstarting their campaign away to Laois. And then 2 big Ulster quarterfinals to discuss as well. Armagh going up against Cavan and Down, obviously hosting Donegal. So, Seamus, how's things with yourself, first of all? I mean, it's a bumper championship weekend, and I suppose things beginning to really heat up after this weekend, you'd imagine.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on again. 2 cracking weekends to start off the championship, absolute shocks, and it feels like in every game that there could have been a bit of an upset, there was, and there has been an upset, and the only really one that went kind of according to script was the Derry Fermanagh game. Apart from that, they've all had twists and turns, left, right, and centre. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, really looking forward to seeing what this weekend springs up. It's like you have your ideas of who's going to come out on top in each game, but haven't seen gone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you might have cut out there ever so slightly, but yeah, nonetheless, like, it is a massive weekend, and like, especially as you said, when you look at the opening round of games, like the opening 2 weekends, like you didn't have much games to contend with. Like, there was only 2 matches last week, but there was plenty to talk about in terms of Monaghan obviously beating Tyrone. The week before, you'd Roscommon, who turned over Mayo. So, like I said it to Matthew on my own review show, and maybe you said the same to him as well. Like, you do get that feeling that this year's championship has the potential to be wide open, which, like, there's probably going to be a lot of there's probably a lot of games this week that probably will go according to plan. But at the same time, like, when you look at how things have gone so far, you just don't know what could happen. And look, hopefully we do get plenty of thrills and spills again this weekend.
Well, yeah, definitely, because I feel like there's a lot of teams right now in the championship that we don't quite know where they're at. Like, we don't really know where Dublin are at. We don't really know where Kerry are at. We don't really know where Tyrone are at even. I know that they lost to Monaghan, but like, they could be right up there. And for long periods of that Monaghan game, Tyrone played really, really well. And particularly their form in the first half, I was looking at them thinking, they're on it today. Dara Canavan in particular up front in that full forward line, 5 shots, a goal and 4. So, like, yeah, definitely I agree with you. It's looking wide open potentially, because I think the main reason is that we just don't really know where teams are at. Like, last year, for example, Kerry were favourites outright right from the start. And then years previous, it has been Dublin that have been favourites right from the start. 2021 was the one where all of a sudden it shot wide open when Dublin got knocked out. But I mean, in terms of this year is the first one in a long time where I feel like right from the outset, you wouldn't bet your house on a contender.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think there's 5 or 6 teams, I think, that really genuinely do believe they have a chance. A few comments coming in here. Tomo says Roscommon v Galway, or Westmeath v Louth, Sligo v New York, maybe in terms of the games to watch this weekend. On Far says Down could take advantage of Donegal being in turmoil and sneak that one. Sadly, I struggle to get excited about our game against Laois. It's just great to have championship back. Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think most Dublin fans, unless you're going to the game and you're making the trip to Portlaoise, I don't think you probably will be very excited about the match. And I think it clashes with the Galway Roscommon match as well, which is a bit disappointing because I kind of want to watch both of them, and maybe I'll figure a way to watch both of them, but it is a little bit frustrating. Tom says Kerry v Dublin, Galway, only teams that can win Sam. I'd say there's definitely probably a few more teams that would fancy their chances, especially after the opening round of games. And I suppose, speaking of Galway, they're taking on Roscommon. Roscommon, obviously, with that big result against Mayo the last time out. And we will start, obviously, by looking at the Connacht semi-finals. And I suppose, like, when you look at this game, you would imagine it mightn't be the game of the week, but in terms of the quality that's on show, two top half of the table Division 1 sides. And look, Galway might be slight favourites, but to be honest with you, like, this is a very, very hard one to call. And after Roscommon turning over Mayo in the way that they did, it would not surprise me one bit at least if they went and beat Galway in their own backyard.
Without doubt. I mean, look at the history of Galway, Roscommon over the last 2 years. Roscommon beat them twice in the league last year. They beat them in the league normal, regular, and then they beat them in the Division 2 final. I know Galway returned the favour in the championship, but my point is that Roscommon Galway games are back and forth. One team wins and the other team wins the next game. They're very, very evenly matched. And last time Roscommon won the Connacht title, it has parallels with this one, because of course 2019 Mayo were Division 1 champions, fresh Division 1 champions. Roscommon beat them in the first round and then went on to beat Galway and claim the Connacht title. Similar pattern here. Mayo, freshly league champions. Roscommon take them out straight away and then move on, and now they're up against Galway. Could we see a repeat of 2019? Who knows? But I do think this Galway team is a lot better than that one in 2019. I think that they're further along now in their evolution under Pádraig Joyce. I know Joyce wasn't even the manager last time in 2019. But I do think that they're getting better and better. And the one thing that Galway have massively improved on over the league is their squad depth. Their squad depth over the league is way better than it was this time last year. You've got Peter Cook is back in there. Ian Burke is back in there. We've seen progression from the likes of Tom O'Callaghan, Cathal Sweeney. Like, they have leveled up in terms of their bench and in terms of their squad, because I think that was one of the key things that let them down last year. For Roscommon, pretty much had a perfect start to 2023, brilliant start to the league campaign, 3 wins out of 3. And then they just kind of let it slip there in the second half of the league, pulled it back, got a great win against Donegal on the last day. Look, yeah, it was a Donegal team in turmoil, as that comment said, but Roscommon still had to beat them, and by God, they beat them out the gate. So it's one of those things where, again, it's difficult to know just how good Roscommon are, because they look really, really good. But when you're talking, can they go and win an All-Ireland? Because over the last few years, they have looked really good, but then they've come nowhere near challenging for an All-Ireland. So it's interesting to see. This game would be a really good way of seeing if they are different this year.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, when you have listened to people discuss the Roscommon Mayo game, I think a lot of people have said Roscommon were excellent and brilliant, and I definitely think that they were. And I think Mayo's game plan was probably, tactically, they were just a bit naive to keep running it through the middle time and time again. It'd be interesting to see how Roscommon set up for this game and how Galway counteract that. I couldn't imagine the way Galway have played in the last year or so, especially this year as well. It feels like Pádraig Joyce, they look like they're a real seasoned team now. Now I couldn't imagine them falling for the same traps that Roscommon set for Mayo. You'd imagine this Galway side would be a lot more alert to those kind of issues that they created for Mayo going into this one.
Oh, best believe Pádraig Joyce has watched that game at least 5 or 6 times. They know every detail about that game. They watched it, they studied it, and they've studied pretty much everything about how Roscommon got on in all their league games. Particularly, they'll watch the league game where Roscommon beat them this year, because that was a game where I think, look, even though Roscommon won, I don't think either side would have come out of that game thinking that they played particularly well. Roscommon just got that bounce of the ball that day and they got the result. But I don't think either side played well. And going into this next one now, Roscommon, they've got Davy Burke there, who, in my opinion, was the perfect appointment, the perfect man to bring in. You're bringing in someone that has a real chip on his shoulder, someone who wants to prove everyone that he is one of the top managers. And I think they've absolutely went together really well. And what a start it would be for them to pick up a Connacht title, because I do fully have confidence in saying that whoever wins this game wins Connacht.
Yeah, no, I think that goes without saying, definitely. Do you think Roscommon will set up a similar way to the way they did against Mayo, or do you think maybe they might come on to Galway a bit more in this one? Or how do you think? Because as I said there, with Galway, I think it has the makings of a very cagey game, to be honest with you. Because if Roscommon set up that way again and play that way, like I just don't. I can't see Galway falling into those same habits. So it could make for quite a cagey game without maybe an early goal might open it up a little ever so slightly. But what do you reckon? Do you think Roscommon will sort of go about this game the same way they obviously went about beating Mayo?
Well, you see, it's different because Galway play differently than Mayo. Galway is set out differently than Mayo. You're going to have John Daly sweeping across the defence. You're going to have him sitting there anchoring the defence like he does in every game for Galway. Like Mayo kind of play more of a rock and roll style football where they try and take you on. Galway throughout the league campaign, quite surprisingly when you consider the type of football that Joyce was playing when he started, but Galway were quite comfortable in those really low scoring, rough, tough games. And they pulled out some good results in those games in the league campaign. Like you think about their victory over Armagh, Matthew Tierney getting that last minute goal to give them the victory there against Armagh, which probably was the result that sent Armagh tumbling towards relegation, to be honest. Like Galway have got more comfortable with winning an ugly game. And that's why I think that they are a different proposition for Roscommon. It's not one size fits all. Just because it worked on Mayo doesn't mean it will work on Roscommon. Or work on Galway, sorry. The other thing is with Mayo have had a tendency over the last few years to be way more inconsistent than Galway. Mayo tend to play to the level of the team that they're playing against. So they'll go out and they'll put it up to Kerry or they'll beat Dublin, and then they'll go out and make a real test of playing against like a team that are nowhere near their level on paper. So Galway, I think, are a bit more consistent, which means that you're less likely to catch them on the hop.
Yeah, I think so. That's the thing. That probably is the difference between Galway, Mayo, and maybe even Roscommon to a certain extent. Like Galway do seem like a very mature, experienced, seasoned side, and like they probably are going under the radar. In fairness, in terms of being huge All-Ireland contenders. I mean, I definitely have seen plenty of people tip them online, but there probably isn't the same amount of hype around Galway as there is around other counties. And I suppose with Galway, like they are probably predominantly a hurling county, so it's like a lot of the time the focus probably goes towards the Galway hurlers and the footballers, and there is a bit of a split there, but there doesn't seem to be quite as much hype around Galway, which is surprising when you think about it. Like they got to an All-Ireland final last year, they got to a league final this year. They've got probably one of the best forwards in the country in Shane Walsh, who, as we've seen with Kilmacud Crokes, is absolutely exceptional on his day. And when he gets to Croke Park, that's probably when he produces his best football. Defensively, they've improved hugely so far this year. And like they've had a good amount of underage success as well. So like there's a lot of moving trends for Galway to not just compete for an All-Ireland this year, but possibly even go and win it.
Without doubt. And I feel like the fact that there's no hype around them is perfect. Like you look over the last 10, 15 years, like when Pat Gilroy came into the Dublin job, his first motivation was to get rid of the hype around his team. And look at all the managers since that have had really successful teams. Like Jim Gavin was like absolutely could not stand press coverage. Like he wanted as little press coverage around his team as possible, gave the most, stone cold. It's all about the process answers. He wanted no hype around the team, no matter how good they were. And look how they took the hype out of going for 5 in a row. Like considering what that achievement was, there wasn't that much anticipation before the game of potentially completing a 5 in a row. Again, you look over to their rivals. You look to Mayo. How many times has hype shot them in the foot? How many times has hype gotten the better of them? They've made mistakes at key moments of key matches. And I feel like the hype, the level of anticipation, the level of pressure has definitely contributed to those mistakes being made. You think about Hennelly dropping the ball, Ryan O'Donoghue missing the penalty, Donald Vaughan getting sent off. Like key moments, players have lost their cool, and hype definitely plays into that. So if Galway can keep the expectations relatively not through the roof when they have a fantastic team that is well capable of going and winning an All-Ireland, in my opinion, I think that's the perfect recipe for them.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree. And I think defensively, like they've shown a huge amount of quality this year. Like, I think Sean Kelly's come on leaps and bounds, obviously, this year. He's been one of the players of the league, midfield, and midfield is sound with Paul Conroy and obviously Peter Cook now coming back in as well. Like they've a lot of very, very good options. But I suppose the only thing I was thinking of, and I was looking at them obviously in the league final and even throughout times in the league, like they're not, whether it is possibly more of a shift towards trying to, keep teams out and be more defensively solid. At the same time, they're probably not scoring as much. And like, even when you looked at it in the final, like Shane Walsh, Tom Culhan, two of their, only forwards to have scored on the day. Like I'll go back and have a look at that, but that's off the top of my head. But generally, like Matthew Tierney, I don't think scored that day. He was very quiet. And Matthew Tierney's been sensational throughout
and Comer didn't turn up in that final. And
So
they
that could be a worry, maybe. Like, is that outside of Shane Walsh, are they getting enough from their forwards? Like Tierney, in fairness, has been brilliant throughout the league. So, you can excuse him, but everyone else, like Comer has been injured. Like, I don't know, like their forwards don't seem to be 100% firing just yet, which is the only thing I think, could cost them. But at the same time, now is the time for them to kick into gear.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that when it got to the semi-final and the final, don't get me wrong, Rob Finnerty is a fantastic footballer, and he's the way Rob Finnerty can ping up all over the bar is genuinely Paul Mannion-esque. But last year, in the two biggest games of the year, the All-Ireland semi-final and the final, he did very little. And like the semi-final, I think he got Chrissy McCaig marking him. I mean, fair enough, Chrissy McCaig's probably the best man marker in the business right now, but McCaig completely took him out of the game. In a game where, let's not forget, Galway dominated, especially in the second half, and Finnerty still didn't get anything off him. And then in the All-Ireland final, again, Walsh carried the can basically by himself for long periods of that game. Jason Foley was completely on top of Damien Comer. And going forward now, Galway need to have assurances that if something, like, God forbid, but if Shane Walsh gets injured, they need to know that they've someone else that can carry the can. And they didn't see that last year. I thought in the semi-final, actually, Damien Comer was fantastic. Against Derry, he was brilliant. And that's why I had him kind of pegged down for an All-Star, because he completely dominated Brendan Rodgers in that game. And Brendan Rodgers was amazing last year. Like, look at the performance he put in on Michael Murphy in the Ulster final. But yeah, no, looking forward now, they need assurances that when they're in the fire, Shane Walsh has other people helping him, more people helping him than he had last year.
Absolutely. And I suppose from a Roscommon point of view, then, like when you have German Murtha in the form that he was in, obviously in that win versus Mayo, and the Donny Smith, I mean, like there's been made of some of the younger players that have come in, the likes of Ben O'Carroll and Keane McKeown and a few others in the last couple of years, but the sort of the mainstays of Roscommon in the last couple of years, like that's almost what was crucial in getting them over the line the last day. And you think of that Galway defence, although they've been fairly solid, like they will have their hands handed to them with Enda Smith, Conor Cox if he starts, because and German Murtha, who's been in outstanding form, obviously the last day as well. So like Roscommon have a lot of ways they can hurt Galway as well.
And that's the difference with Roscommon. I know that we're talking about Dermot Murtha and the form that he's in, but I feel like for Roscommon, there's not as obvious a one-man threat as Galway have. Like Galway immediately are thinking, what are we going to do about Shane Walsh? For Roscommon, probably the main one that you'd look at and say, what are we going to do about this guy is probably Enda Smith. He's probably the main one that you'd look at and think, okay, he needs to be picked up by someone. He'll probably get a Sean Kelly or someone marking him. But like on the flip side, for Roscommon, like they have, as you said, Conor Cox, Dermot Murtha, Downey Smith, all of them can just catch fire in one day and put over 6 points like by themselves. So Galway, all individually with the defenders, need to have a good game. And let's not forget, they're without Liam Silk and they're without Kieran Malloy from last year's defence. So you could argue they don't have as good a defence as they did last year. Definitely, they've tightened up on the system. They're more used to the way of defending. But you could argue probably player for player, defender for defender, the defence is maybe a bit weaker than it was last year.
Yeah, ultimately then who do you think will come out on top? And as we said, like I think it goes without saying, really. I think no disrespect to Sligo or New York, we'll mention that game in just a minute's time. But you would imagine the winner of this will win the Connacht Championship. So who do you reckon will come out on top?
I've said Galway from day one in the Connacht Championship, and I'm going to stick to Galway. And I predicted Galway to win like a couple of days after they lost to Mayo in the league final. So a lot of people didn't agree with me when I picked Galway to win the Connacht Championship. I just thought, look, Championship comes round, Galway switch up. And the fact that Roscommon beat Mayo kind of takes it, because I did predict Mayo to win that game. But I am going to still go with Galway to take this and take the Connacht title. Very, very, very narrowly, though. 1 point, 2 points.
Yeah, like, to be honest with you, I was thinking earlier today, I was torn between going for both counties, and I'm still very undecided, because like one part of me believes like Roscommon coming in with this huge amount of momentum, huge amount of confidence after obviously turning over Mayo. As you said before, that there seems to be an omen there for when Mayo win the league. Roscommon tend to go on and win Connacht titles and beat Mayo and Galway in their own backyard. And like I just think they're coming in with a huge amount of confidence that a part of me does feel like they will win. But at the same time, you look at Galway and you think they'll surely click into gear here. And like with how much seasoned and veteran they looked in the league, I don't think they'll fall for the same traps that Roscommon set them. And actually, what I think will end up happening is I think the game will go to extra time. I think Galway will probably just have a bit more knack of coming through the game. They'll probably bring a few players off the bench to see it through. But
well, Aaron, let's not forget last year.
Penalties could even happen as well here.
Yeah. But when you're talking about switching up the gear for Championship, let's not forget Roscommon beat them twice in the league, and then when Championship came around, who won?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a key reason as to why I am picking Galway.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think I'll go for them by the smallest of margins after extra time. But I think penalties could happen here. This could be the first provincial final. Well, actually, provincial semi-final that goes to penalties. But I think we do expect the side to win this, to go on and win the provincial championship. In fairness, on farce as well said, Mayo and the hype, eternal sympathy seekers too. Nobody would begrudge them a title, but it won't be handed to them with ribbons on it. They have to earn it. And yeah, and look, and in fairness to Mayo, like I think they have been able to park the hype to a certain extent so far this year. I think the problem is just so many supporters get hugely into it, and look, rightly so. Like, but I think maybe it has gotten to the players. But at the same time, this it is up to the players to try and manage that, because Dublin had this for years before they eventually went on to win it in 2011. But there you go. Sligo versus New York is the other game we were mentioning. It is a Connacht semi-final, so obviously the other game not a provincial final. But here we go. Sligo versus New York. New York making the trip to Sligo. Obviously they made the trip to Offaly last year in the Tailteann Cup, and bit of a unique feel to this. I don't think many people would have envisaged Sligo versus New York as a Connacht semi-final, but here we go.
Yeah, and this is the potential to be one of the most expensive games for the GAA's bank balance in history, because if New York win this, they're into the All-Ireland group stage, which is absolutely crazy, which would mean a lot more games for New York going forward against the best teams in the country. So I'm sure the GAA, while yes, it would be fantastic story for the game and fantastic growth, I'd say whoever is running the accounts of the GAA is looking at Sligo here and going, come on, lads, don't let me down here, because there's going to be a lot of payments shipped out to get players going back and forth from New York if they do pull this one out of the bag.
Yeah, there definitely is. All right. I think there's definitely probably whoever's in charge of the expenses within the GAA or whatever way it works. I think they probably will be like looking over their shoulder ever so slightly and probably just keeping one eye on this game when it's on. But look, it's a phenomenal story, obviously, for New York. Like, I mean, getting that win against Leitrim and the way that they did it, the occasion that they did it. But look, I was thinking at the same time, like they're not here just to make up the numbers. Like they've got a very good side, and although with it being a Markovich Park and New York making the trip over, that might take a bit out of them, but at least they have the experience of making that trip last year against Offaly. Like, few of the lads are still in the panel. Johnny Glynn, Johnny McGeeney still the manager, Adrian Varley still there. So, like, when you look at New York's team and you look at Sligo's team, you could actually argue that New York have a better team.
That's the craziest thing, is that I actually like New York's chances in this game. I'm not saying that I'm going to pick them to win, but when you look at it as well, You've got Adrian Varley, Owen Cairn as well, started for Galway in the 2018 semi-final under Kevin Walsh. You've got Johnny Glynn there, who was fantastic in the game against Leitrim. The absolute size of him, big powerhouse in midfield. You've got Bill Maher there. Like, they've got talent upon talent. They've got Shane Carty there from St. Vincent's. Like, they have fantastic players. And for Sligo, definitely watching a team in Leitrim that, let's be real, Sligo have had really tight battles with now over the last couple of years. They got the win, a really, really difficult win in Carrick-on-Shannon in one of the last rounds of Division 4. And then they beat them on penalties last year in the Tailteann Cup. And now Leitrim went over and were beaten on penalties by New York. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Sligo lose this game.
I think so as well. Like, and it has the makings of a real banana skin for Sligo as well, because they obviously came through London. They came through that significantly, but it's just it's a big moment for Sligo football to get to a Connacht final. And regardless of what happens in that game, in the Connacht final, you'd have to say what a brilliant season for Sligo, getting out of Division 4 as champions. And like, again, it's a bit of an unknown, and I think Leitrim struggled with this, and maybe Sligo will have more. They'll have more to go off because there's been a game. They'll be able to look at the influence that Shane Carty had for New York. They'll be able to look at what Adrian Varley was able to do. They'll be able to look at the influence of the likes of Mark Ellis and Johnny Glynn. But so, like, Sligo will have more. They'll have more sort of ways to prepare for this. But like, at the same time, it's a huge game for them, and you know, it's massive for Sligo to get back to a Connacht final.
Oh, it's huge. And like, I just feel like this game is so scary because it's one of those things where you have everything to lose and nothing really to gain. If they beat New York, no one's really going to give them too much credit for, oh, you did what you were supposed to do. And if they lose, like you saw, the GA having to come out and defend the Leitrim players from social media abuse, which is absolutely disgusting. But like, because if you look at New York's team, like, that's not not a New York team where it's like bunch of lads that they've pulled out of bed. That's not a junior B situation where you're pulling out the goalkeeper fresh off having a few pints last night like it used to be back. This is a quality team that if they had the whole year around to play, I do believe that they'd win a few games in Division 4. They beat Leitrim and they beat them on penalties. And this is a Leitrim side that obviously had recently had the retirements of Emlyn Mulligan. There were other key players missing. It wasn't a Leitrim side at full strength. And Sligo will be looking at that and thinking, like, we don't want to go through that. Like, and for what, really? They make a Connacht final. Will they be expected to win it? No. So they can go in and they can give it a lash in the Connacht final and see what happens. Then they're into the All-Ireland Championship group stage. And again, like, yes, while that is a reward, in a sense, you get to play the All-Ireland Championship, but is it a reward if you go out and get hammered 3 games in a row?
Yeah, like that is the conundrum, isn't it? Like, and that might be, you know, that certainly might be an issue for Sligo further down the line.
Sorry to say this, but the one that just tells me the most when you're talking about the group stages is I remember Roscommon, I think it was 2018, Roscommon made the Super 8s and everybody talked it up as if it was, you know, oh, what an achievement for Roscommon. They made the Super 8s, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. And then they got absolutely annihilated by Tyrone and Dublin in back-to-back games in Croke Park. It was some of the toughest games to watch I've ever seen. And it was like, they ended that year with the biggest, like, negativity around the camp. And like, they were thinking that they were so far off the pace. And it was like, was that really a good thing that happened to them? Like, was that really something that inter-county players want to go through? When you watch Leitrim go out and play Mayo in a couple of years ago and lose 4-20 to 9 points or something, you think, is that really something the players want to go through?
Yeah. And like, it is going to be a talking point. Like, I think when, like, we'll obviously not discuss it now, but I think when the provincial finals come around, I think people then, although it would be great to see Sligo get to a Connacht final, it'd be great to see Clare, as you'd imagine, possibly get to a Munster final, maybe a Louth or a Westmeath, or maybe Meath pull it off and get to a Leinster final, and we'll see what happens in Ulster. But you're like, a lot of the provincial finals are going to be very lopsided, I think. And then you're going to have a scenario in the group stages where all the pot 2 sides are going to be possibly the whipping boys of each group. Do you know what I mean? And that's going to create a bit of an imbalance. And although I think the group stages are a good idea, I do think at the same time there's a lot wrong with it, I think, as well, if you get me.
Yeah, no, I completely get you, because the Super 8s kind of felt like that. If a team scraped into the Super 8s, it was like, congratulations, you're going to get 3 hammerings and then you're going to exit the championship, rather than getting one quarter final in Croke Park where, okay, you get shown that you're not on the pace. All right, go back. But when teams, say when Roscommon got annihilated by Tyrone and then had to go back and play Dublin a week after or 2 weeks after, and that defeat is still fresh in their memory, and then it starts happening again, I'd say there's nothing more demoralizing as a footballer to be like, here we go again. Like we're not up to this level just yet, and for some reason we have to go through this again and again and again. And that's my issue with the group stages. I think, like, look, you could argue in ways it's a better format. It's definitely a better format than we had a couple of years ago. But I'll be an advocate for the senior, intermediate, and junior championships probably until the day I die at this stage. Like I just think it's by far and away the best way to do it. It gives teams loads of games at the level that they're capable of. Why do you think that the Allianz League is by far the most competitive competition that we have? Like, it's the most competitive and hardest to call competition that we have, because teams play at their level, and the championship should really take a leaf out of that.
I think so, yeah. I think even looking at, what the ladies football championship has brought, like in the last couple of years, and seeing the likes of Mead obviously, make the rise up from intermediate level. But ultimately, then, what are you thinking? Do you think Sligo will have enough, or could New York pull off I suppose if they were to win, it would surely, this year would go down. It would probably go down as one of the greatest GAA stories ever, because you don't think about them winning, but you also think about what's to come, and the possibilities of them playing a Kerry, playing a Dublin, playing someone like this, getting another game in Gaelic Park. I mean, there'll be so many stories to it, but what do you reckon?
I think it would be great for the GAA if New York did win. No disrespect to Sligo. I think it would be great for the GAA's bank balance if Sligo won. And I do think that Sligo will win. I do think that, look, I was impressed with them at stages in the Division 4 final. Look, I thought they started very slowly. And yes, they won the Division 4 final in the way that I predicted them to win. But they didn't win in the manner that I predicted them to win in. I thought that Wicklow would need to get the goals to stay in touch with Sligo, because Sligo were going to hit 20-something points like they had done in previous games in Croke Park. And it was Sligo that were relying on the goals. And it was them that were, not producing the same level of attack as Wicklow were. And so even though, look, Sligo are Division 4 champions, absolutely deserving Division 4 champions, there is a weakness there that maybe if they don't start fast and New York start to build up a lead, maybe it could be panic stations. Is this about to happen? Are we about to lose to New York and be remembered forever as that team that New York beat on their way to the Connacht final? Like, because that's in their mind. Make no mistake about this. If New York win this, there'll be a documentary about this in 5 years. And these Sligo players know that. These Sligo players know this will go down in GAA history if they lose. Whereas if they win, it will have a little segment on the back page. Like, so that type of thing. The stakes here are way more. New York can just go for it. But I do think Sligo will win. I think they have very, very strong forwards there. The likes of Niall Murphy and the likes of Sean Carabine, that they'll just drag them through when they really need to. And, players of the caliber of Luke Towie, I think they're going to drag themselves through. Paul Kilcoyne and Keane Lally, again, very strong midfield pairing in that Division 4 final. And I just think they're going to drag them through it and get them over the line.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think they're just a bit too strong, a bit too seasoned. You look at the underage success that's building in Sligo at the minute as well. Obviously, they have an under-20 Connacht final come up. I think they beat Mayo a couple of weeks ago. So they really are building onto something. I think Sligo football is definitely going in a good place. And yeah, I just think that they will be way too strong, I think. I do think New York will definitely poke holes in Sligo's armoury, and I think it will probably only be 4, maybe 5 points. And I think New York might maybe have Sligo sort of on edge at different times. But I think ultimately, when you look at what Sligo have done so far this year, the trajectory they're going on as well, I think it would be a major setback if they were to slip up here. So I think they will come through it. Lorraine says, here's hoping you're both wrong with predictions. Roscommon to beat Galway. And Jack says, Armagh, Roscommon, Derry, not sure. So there we go. I suppose moving on then to the Ulster quarterfinals. And I suppose the big one here really is Cavan versus Armagh. Hard one to call this when you think about it. Like, I feel like a year ago, maybe people would have looked at this and thought Armagh definitely. But now with the fact that it's in Breffni Park, the fact that both of these two sides will be in the same division next season as well, in Division 2. Like, Armagh are likely, I think Rian O'Neill is going to be out from what I've heard. I know there's a lot of, like, they're really trying not to release too much coming out of Armagh. They're trying to keep it all under wraps, but I don't think he will be playing. And Cavan are coming in great form, you know, having won the Division 3 title. So, like, this is a game that really could go either way.
Yeah, it's definitely, as you said, I would agree with the first thing you said about it's definitely more split than it would have been this time last year. Armagh seemed to be on a real upward trajectory last year. Some of the results they had in the league last year, you're talking about the victory over Dublin in particular was the one that stood out. But yeah, to get relegated this year in the way that they did, I was predicting them to be right up the top of the league table. I thought they'd really kick on and go try and win it. So to see them relegated was a real shock. Cavan breezed through Division 3. I know they took their foot off the gas in the last two league games, lost to Antrim, which was a real shock, and then obviously lost to Fermanagh the last day, but put that right in the league final. Their first 5 games in Division 3 were flawless. They really looked like they could put the pace on anyone in Division 3, and they looked like they were far too good for the division that they were in. Even without Thomas Galligan, who I genuinely think is their best midfielder. Coming into this game against Armagh, it's really, really hard to tell because you could see, and this is mainly one of the first things that I'm thinking, you could see Kieran McGeeney and Kieran Donaghy, Kieran McKeever riling these Armagh boys up to say, look, we've been relegated. Everyone is riding us off. Come on. We have to win this now. We have to win this now. You're talking about, look, I know it was COVID. I know it was different times, but Mayo got relegated and they made it to an All-Ireland final. Getting relegated from Division 1 is not the be-all and end-all. Dublin got relegated last year, only lost to Kerry by a point in the All-Ireland semi-final, and it was that Shawnee O'Shea point. And that was without Con, without Paul Mannion, without Jack McCaffrey. So getting relegated from Division 1 is not the be-all and end-all. And I do think Armagh should bounce back, and I actually am going to predict them to win.
Yeah. Like, I think it would be a tough one, and I think it would be, because I know a lot of people this year have sort of questioned Armagh's sort of resilience in some ways. Like, I think there's a lot of times in the league where, like, I don't know what it was, but they didn't seem to have that lack of urgency or play with that same sort of style that you would have associated with Armagh playing last year. But yeah, like, because I was even looking back at their record in Ulster in the last couple of years, like, and it really isn't too good. Like, you think back to last year, lost in the opening game versus Donegal. 2021, they're only, they got to a semi-final but lost to Monaghan. Like, their only wins in Ulster in the last couple of years have come against the likes of Antrim. They beat Derry in 2020, but I don't think that was the same Derry team as what we're seeing today. No, 2019, they lost to Cavan via replay as well. So, like, there is a lot of pressure on Armagh because this is the big one now. Like, this is the one where, like, if McGeeney can get Armagh to deliver and get them to an Ulster final, I think it takes the sort of, the pressure off his shoulders a little bit. And I think maybe there won't be as much baggage associated with Armagh. But I do think, like, when you look at Armagh in Ulster in the last 6-7 years, there has been a mental block there. And if the going gets tough against Cavan, it might be tough for them to turn it around.
Well, true, because let's not forget they're playing against a team that has won an Ulster title a couple of years ago. Cavan won the Ulster title in 2020, and that was, let's not kid ourselves here, Cavan won that Ulster title the hard way. Like, they beat Monaghan, they beat Antrim, they beat Down, and then they beat Donegal in that final. And while Donegal, yes, are in a bit of trouble now, that Donegal team was genuinely tipped to be Dublin's direct rival for the All-Ireland before that Ulster final. Like, they'd blown Armagh away. They'd beaten Tyrone in an absolute battle in the preliminary round. And they just looked world-class. And then Cavan, took them out. And that last goal by Conor Madden, that was one of the biggest shocks of the year. And, for Armagh, they haven't even made an Ulster final since 2008. Kieran McGeeney's been the manager since 2015, and they haven't even made an Ulster final. So that's something that is definitely going to be playing on his mind, because I do genuinely believe that he's Kieran McGeeney, and who he is has a major reason, I think, in why there's so much faith in him. He was Armagh's centre halfback and captain and leader of their All-Ireland winning team. And I feel like if he was anybody else, the pressure would be a lot higher on him right now. And but now the two things that are key here is who was represented in that Division 4 final between Wicklow and Sligo and doing really, really well with their teams. Tony McEntee and Oisin McConville, both Armagh men, both Armagh legends. And all of a sudden, if you're talking Armagh legends being managers, they actually do have a couple of other options now. And so McGeeney needs to win this. McGeeney needs to win this. And he needs to have something to show, hey, we made it to an Ulster final, or we won an Ulster title, as a reason to be given longer in the job to have a crack at the All-Ireland. Because I don't think they're winning the All-Ireland this year, but I think they need to win this game.
I think so as well. I think it's make or break, because I think if they lose this as well, I think they'll go in as a pot 4 team as well. The loser of Galway, Roscommon will be a pot 3 side, and the loser of Monaghan Derry will be a pot 3 team as well. Obviously Mayo and Tyrone already in there. So they will go in as a pot 4 side, and that it's going to be very, very tough. Because of the fact 3 teams go through, they'll probably get out of it anyway. But at the same time, they're going to make things very, very tough for themselves. So you're backing Armagh for the win?
Correct. I'm going to go with Armagh to win by 3.
I think so as well. I do have a real sneaky suspicion, just by the way this year's championship has gone. Cavan.
Yeah, no, knowing this now, Cavan will win by 10 points or something.
Yeah. It's just been that type of year, and that's why even Roscommon beating Galway as well. I know there's going to be surprises this week, and I know it will probably both be left with egg on our face come Sunday evening.
Oh my God, what was I saying? I feel it's McGeeney's job on the line here, pretty much.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to go for it with everything they've got, and that should be enough.
I think so as well. Yeah, I think with the fact there's so much on the line, you'd imagine there'd be a kick from Armagh surely, and surely they'll want to put things right. Down versus Donegal is the other Ulster quarter final. Down beating Donegal, I was thinking about it. Would it even be that big of a shock if Down actually beat Donegal with the way Donegal have been playing so far this year? And Down are motoring very well. Obviously their under 20s are looking quite good. There's a lot of feel good factors around Down football at the minute. And I suppose as on Farr, who was commenting earlier, saying he fancies Down to turn over Donegal. And to be honest with you, I agree. I think Down, especially with this game being played in Newry as well, in Park Esler, I fancy Down to cause what would be a shock, I suppose. But when you actually look at the basis of how this year has gone, maybe it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I feel like we could be in for a not really surprising shock, because I feel like I don't think Down, how can I phrase this? I don't think Down can beat Donegal, but I think Donegal can lose to Down. And I think it's that type of thing. I think Donegal can beat themselves. When you look at how they lost to Roscommon, that was one of the most pitiful, embarrassing performances from an inter-county team that I've seen over the last 5 years. You've got nothing to lose. You're relegated. You're down. Your manager's gone. Would you not at least go, here, let's genuinely just give it a crack? And I was genuinely thinking Roscommon would beat them, but that Donegal would put up a big tally. I thought it would be Roscommon a goal and 18, Donegal 2 goals and 14 or something. But I thought Donegal's forwards would actually click into the gear because they weren't playing a set system, and players like Jamie Brennan or Sheen Gallen would just kind of show how talented they actually are, because they are superb footballers. And just the way they just let Roscommon step all over them in the second half. A team that Donegal 2 years ago, we all would have picked Donegal to beat Roscommon. So this isn't even a team where it's a Galway or a Kerry, or it's Roscommon, a team that Donegal 3 years ago would have been more than confident of beating. So for Down, the fact that they have a huge amount of just positivity around the camp. You've got Conor Laverty there. Nothing but great stories coming out about Laverty. Then you've got the Kilcoo boys coming back in. Eugene Brannigan, a man who came out and said he'd never play for Down. Conor Laverty has a quick word with him and he's straight in there. So clearly there's something going right with Down. And motivation and confidence and momentum, that can carry you a long, long way. If another team is all over the place, like momentum can carry you a long, long way. And the best example I'll give it, I know it's a completely different sport, but Leicester winning the league, like that team on paper is not league champions, but momentum carried them all the way. And you look at then in the exact same season, Mourinho's Chelsea, on paper, last year's champions, but they had a really bad atmosphere in that camp, and they were losing to teams that they would have absolutely slapped up the year previously. So that's a real factor going into this game. And to answer the honest question, do I think I'd be surprised if Down beat Donegal? No.
Yeah, I suppose Keane makes a good point here at the same time. He says even though Donegal had a National League to forget, a win here could turn their season for the better. I'm predicting a Donegal win. They have a lot to prove, but Donegal to get through by 4 points. Like, it is a good point. Like, and I was even thinking about this, I remember when I was doing my own All-Ireland predictions, and I was even thinking, like, the fact that Donegal have been so poor in the league, and the fact that they do have a good team, like, they do have good players, and like, I do think if they got their act together, that they'd have what it takes to beat a side like Down, in my opinion. Like, Down are a Division 3 side. It's not like they got out of Division 3. They had a few disappointing results themselves. They lost to the likes of Fermanagh, scraped past Antrim. Like, it wasn't perfect for Down, and obviously it is, Conor Laverty's first season. There's bound to be bumps in the road, but like, obviously Donegal will be going into this. They should be going in with a chip on their shoulder, and I'm sure Aidan O'Rourke, who I think is going to be the man who's taking charge for this game, he should be doing, the old cliche of, showing the Donegal players what the media have been saying, what people have been saying, maybe what we've been saying, although I doubt they probably watch us, but maybe they should be looking at this and thinking, like, a bit like when Davy Burke has come out and he said, we were disrespected and everything else. That's what Donegal should be doing. Like, that's what and that may be what might be able to get them over the line.
True, but then when you look at it on the other side, I thought they'd do that against Roscommon in the last round of the league. I know that the stakes are way higher in this game. I know that they were already relegated in the Roscommon game, but they didn't show me anything in the Roscommon game that gives me any confidence that they're going to bounce back. Look, do I think that they could get through this Down game? Yes. And when we actually get down to it, I may pick them. I just still kind of have to make up my mind over it as we're chatting about it. But like, they haven't shown, and even if I do think that they can get through Down, I don't think they're getting past Armagh or Cavan. So it's one of those things that, yes, while they may get through this one, I don't back them to have all of a sudden this new wave of momentum where all of a sudden everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet and all of a sudden their attack is moving fluid and they're hitting over 16 points a game. Like, Donegal didn't look good in attack in any of the games that they played, really. So, like, that's one of the... I would... Like, off the top of my head, I don't think they hit 18 points in any of their games.
No, I don't even think they hit over 14, 15.
I think that in the game against Monaghan, I want to say they hit 15, and Monaghan hit a goal in 20 or something. And but even the Kerry game that they won, they only hit 13 points. So their attack didn't really shoot the lights out in any game that they played.
Yeah, like, I think Paddy McBurthy's still injured, I think, as well, which I think, like, is a huge loss. Like, they're missing a lot of key players, and you're having lads in the backroom team like stepping away, and there just seems to be almost like this year is a bit of a write-off for Donegal. Like, that seems to be the general consensus, where they've nearly looked at this year and thought it's over before it's even started. And you'd imagine Conor Laverty and Down, like, they'll be looking at this thinking, what an opportunity we have to cause a bit, like, maybe not a huge scalp, but it's a huge opportunity to get a win against a county who's beaten them quite comprehensively the last few times that these two have played. So, yeah, ultimately, then what are you going for?
All right, I'll go for Down. I'm going to say Down by a point or two. Steal all the headlines.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it'll be narrow. Like, and
No,
I
this
think
is going to get clipped up if Donegal win by
yeah. To be fair, that happens. Well, it doesn't happen all the time. I get plenty of people messaging me about predictions anyway, so it'll definitely be nothing new. But yeah, no, like I just think so as well. I think they'll edge you by 1 or 2. I do think Donegal will show some signs of life. I think surely they have to, but no, I think Down will go and win the game narrowly. I suppose then we will move on then into the Munster semi-final. So we have Clare going up against Limerick. We'll discuss this game. First of all, Clare obviously getting that result against Cork, which obviously puts them in with a huge chance to get to a Munster final. But as we very well know, Limerick beat Clare last year on penalties, but you'd look at Clare, you'd look at the body of work Colm Collins has done over the last 10 years. Like this is their time now where they go and get themselves to a Munster final, surely.
Agreed. And even though Limerick beat them on penalties last year, it's a completely different Limerick team. No Billy Lee. I'm not sure what the story is with Josh Ryan. Is he back from his injury?
I don't think so now. I think he's gone
he's their best forward, in my opinion. He's their best forward and he's not going to be there. So it's a completely different Limerick team than it was last year. And again, a Limerick side that, had to beat them on penalties. It's a Clare side that know what they're playing for. They're playing to get into the All-Ireland Championship again under Colm Collins, even though, look, I do think if they won the Tailteann Cup, that would be something to commemorate Colm Collins' amazing tenure with this side. But look, they want to be in the All-Ireland Championship. They want to compete against the best. And I think that they will. I think they're going to win this game, Clare. I'd be very confident in saying that.
I think so as well. Like, and just looking at it there, like 2012, the last time that Clare reached a Munster final, and you think about it, like the amount of work that they've done in Division 1 or Division 2 over the last couple of seasons. And even at that, like as well, like when you look at Clare, like plenty of young lads obviously operating at Sigerson Cup level. I didn't watch the game versus Kerry in the under-20s. I think it was last night, or the night before, but it went to extra time. Like it went to extra time. So like Clare might be onto something. Like they're like, I think there was always this maybe expectation that at some point the standards would drop, because they're a predominantly hurling county. Like it's just natural, It's like look at Tipperary, for example. Now, like they've had a bit of a regression over the last couple of years, but in fairness to Clare, they seem to be doing something right, and with some of the younger players that are possibly going to be making the breakthrough in the next couple of seasons, it's all smiles. And as you said, you would fully expect them to beat Limerick this weekend.
Yeah, I do. I fully expect them to beat Limerick. And to talk about how their level has been maintained, it's just been a testament to Colm Collins and how he's managed the talent that's come through for Clare. You think about that, a county that, as you said, is predominantly a hurling county, has lost players of the calibre of Gary Brennan, David Tubridy, Aaron Fitzgerald, Joe Hayes, all over the last 5 years, and yet they've kept that level up. They haven't dipped off at all. Look, I know they got relegated this year, but I actually picked them to get right back up next year. I would it's an early prediction, but I would predict them to be promoted straight back up to Division 2 next year. It's a testament to how good Colm Collins is, and to when the chips are down, to still motivate the troops and get them to pull off a fantastic victory over Cork shows what a manager he is. And in my mind, I don't see any way that they don't win this game.
I think so as well. Yeah, I think it probably 5 or 6. Like especially when you look at how poor Limerick have been this year, and even Clare when they played Limerick in the league as well, they beat them very, very comprehensively. The other game in Munster is Kerry versus Tipperary. I've seen on I think on Paddy Power, one of those betting sites, Kerry are 1 to 500 to win this game. So absolutely madness there. I think Tipperary are like 66 to 1 or something like that.
Oh my god!
So the most craziest
euro, like actually would be worth €1.
Yeah, like it's basically a handicap of 18 points. Basically, is what it's working out as there. So yeah, just mental, obviously. And I suppose, as I was saying in other podcasts and saying to Matthew, like it's like there's a lot of great things about the championship, but seeing these games is probably one of those things that aren't great, because we all know what's going to happen. Kerry will win this by 20 plus probably. And like, I don't know what you do. Like, you can't change certain championships to fit certain teams. Like, so I don't really know. Like, do you give Kerry an automatic bye in the case to the final? But then again,
You'd never give an automatic
yeah,
bye, but you're right. This is the game that, like, how many times are we going to talk about this? Like, it's year after year, and people want to keep the provincial championships for this. But for games like this, it's not good. Like, yeah, provincial championships are fantastic for the big teams. They're fantastic for the teams that are good, but the teams that haven't won a provincial championship in the last 23 years, since the turn of the millennium, if you haven't won a provincial championship, you probably won't. Like, you probably won't. Like speaking realistically, like, Louth probably should have won it in 2010, but Louth probably won't win one for the next 10, 15 years. Like, no matter how good they get, Dublin will always be the favourites for Leinster. They'll always be the favourites. And so it's really, really difficult to keep advocating for the provincial championship to stay exactly the way that it is now. I'm saying this. You would look again at the LGFA structure, and you would look at how teams have to get into the senior championship to play in their senior provincial championship. Like, I think that's a good way of doing it, because if you had that, then the Ulster championship would be completely unmoved. It would be completely unmoved. And then Kerry would play only against teams who had qualified for the senior championship with them in their province. And the Connacht championship would just be Roscommon, Galway, Mayo. Like, we all know it is. Like, that type of thing would be what I would advocate for.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And like, I think like it's important to stress, like, you're not taking away the opportunity completely from those other counties. They just will be playing at sort of a lower level, and they'll be able to qualify back into the championship like
exactly
the following season. A bit like the way it is in hurling as well. Like in the Leinster round robin, like you've got, I know it's kind of the same teams going up and down every year, and that's probably a debate for another day. But I do agree. Like, even when you look at the ladies football championship this year, it's just a straight final between Galway and Mayo. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the way we should be looking at it. And like, you could have, you look at, I don't know how you do it, Division 1 and Division 2 teams, maybe like Kerry, Cork, Clare, as the three sides, and Munster. Then, if you were looking at Leinster, you'd have Division 1 and 2. Like, I suppose that'd be the best way of doing it. But yeah, it is an interesting topic nonetheless.
Yeah, and the thing is that, well, yes, it's a good point to point out with the hurling, but I do genuinely think that there's two factors that come down to that. I feel like number one is just how good the top teams are in hurling. Like, the top teams in hurling are just ridiculously good.
You rarely ever see shocks as well. You rarely ever see surprises in hurling, to be fair.
Big time. Kilkenny, Limerick in particular last year, like, watching that All-Ireland hurling final was like, what? How can a team score 226 in an All-Ireland final and not win? What level do they have to get to? And like, that's just a testament to, again, how good Limerick are. But then the other thing that is a testament to how good that is Offaly are getting better, Kildare are getting better, Derry are getting better. There are other hurling counties now that are getting better. Kerry are getting better. Carlow have improved a lot. And now, even though Laois have gone down, I don't see it as an immediate bounce back for them. I see them definitely as one of the favourites, but I don't see it as a guaranteed, yep, they're going to come back up now next year. I don't see it like that anymore. The progress is being made. And if you fast forward 10 years, I guarantee getting out of the Joe McDonagh will be difficult.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely some interesting points. I suppose in terms of the game, like, Kerry aren't going to learn anything really, you'd imagine, from it. Like, I'm trying to think, like, will they go strong? Will they rotate? Like, how will they approach this? And maybe, do you know what? Like, in terms of the Dublin Laois game, we'll get onto that maybe in a minute. But it's the same scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very similar scenario. It's one of those things where I think they will start their best team and they'll get the job wrapped up by about 40 minutes, and then they'll take off David Clifford, they'll take off Sean O'Shea, and I'm predicting Kerry to win by 12. They won't go 100,000,000%. They don't need to, but they will get the win.
Yeah, I'll say Kerry by by 18 points. But look, hopefully it's less and a bit more competitive. But I don't think that will be happening. In fairness, moving on to the Leinster quarterfinals, Laois versus Dublin, as we were saying there. Like, I mean, I suppose as a Dublin fan, like what do you like? I suppose as Unfair was saying there earlier, a fellow Dublin fan as well. Like, it's hard to get excited for this game. I think we all know that Dublin are going to come through it and win the game. With all due respect to Laois, but like, is there anything we can learn from this game? Is there anything we can look towards? Maybe new players coming back in. Maybe McCaffrey starts. Maybe Paul Mannion starts. Like, what are we thinking for this one?
I think that's the main thing Dublin should do in this game. Start Jack McCaffrey and start Paul Mannion. Because these are the games where, look, the team that we had last year, we weren't good enough to win that All-Ireland. We didn't beat Kerry in the All-Ireland semi-final. And we were missing Con, we were missing Paul Mannion, and we were missing Jack McCaffrey in that game. As I've said 100 million times over. But the reality is, where does this All-Ireland go? Realistically, will Dublin have to beat Kerry, in my opinion, to win the All-Ireland? Yes. So what were we lacking last year that we can add to the team this year? And I think it is those three lads. So all three of them need to start this game. And we need to see what level are these guys on. Because if Jack McCaffrey comes back in and he's nowhere near fit enough to last the full 70 minutes, okay, cool. We know that. Now let's get him into training and make sure that by the time he comes up against Kerry, he's ready. Like, there's a reason why, say, when boxers have time out of the sport, that they come back and they have a warm-up fight before the title fight. Like, there's a reason. And this is Jack McCaffrey and Paul Mannion's. This is their dip their toes back into inter-county championship football. And that's what I feel like Dublin need to do, because we will need Jack and we will need Paul Mannion to win this All-Ireland this year. And I feel like this is the game to give them the run out and test their legs.
Is there a possibility as well, and I know it might sound a bit left field and maybe it won't happen, but obviously with the fact that David O'Hanlon is obviously Dublin's number one and he should definitely be our number one for the entirety of the season, but if he does get an injury, if he does get an injury at some point, there's a possibility that because at the end of the day, like, Cluxton's come in as backup, and maybe he'll say, maybe it's, maybe if he gets the opportunity to play, maybe he doesn't want to play. We don't really know with Stephen Cluxton at the best of times, but at the same time, let's say Dublin hypothetically get to a All-Ireland semi-final or final. They're playing either Kerry or Mayo. A goalkeeping crisis happens. David O'Hanlon gets injured. I think Cluxton's come in as the number 3 from what I've heard, so maybe the number 2 can't play either, let's say.
McShield.
Michael Shields, yeah. Then you have the scenario where you're bringing in Cluxton for his first game in 4 years. And I know it's different for a goalkeeper in terms of sharpness and everything else, but still a big game. So, like, if you give him the game against Laois, that might... Because Dublin used to do this in reverse, if you remember. Like, the opening championship game, they would give it to Evan Comerford, and then Cluxton would come back in, and it was a bit like the same in the league. So could there be an argument maybe that Stephen Cluxton makes a starter? Am I just maybe trying to get excited?
I would be stunned if he starts, because I remember we talked earlier about hype. Dublin don't do hype. We don't like Dublin's management teams over the last 2 years doesn't like this idea, and they know that if Stephen Cluxton started, it would be, wow, Stephen Cluxton played, but David O'Hanlon did so well, that save against Cork, like, people would be not having it, like, this is ridiculous. He walks back in after 3 years. We didn't hear anything from him. And it would put Dublin right at the heart of every GAA media. Like, every GAA podcast will be covering Cluxton's return. And I don't think that's what Dessie Farrell wants. So I would be stunned if he starts. I bet, best believe, in the A versus B games and in the behind the door friendlies that the intercounty teams organise against each other, best believe Cluxton's probably started in a few of them, and he's getting his kind of routine in that way. But I would be stunned if he starts against Laois.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'm probably speaking more as the Dublin, the nostalgic Dublin fan who's plenty of great memories of watching Cluxton line out. Just wants him to get that one last opportunity. But yeah, no, I think you probably have hit the nail on the head there. In fairness, I think ultimately then, what do you think of Dublin by 10,
10.
15 or 10. Yeah, I think
10. I'm going
I think
Dublin by 10. I think Laois will put up a good fight in terms of going forward. I actually think Laois can cause Dublin a few problems defensively. They've got good forwards there. The likes of Evan O'Carroll especially have caused Dublin problems in the past. But Dublin by 10.
Absolutely. Del Boy Gunner TV says, big up the lads. Come on, the Ross. Yeah, hopefully Roscommon can get the job done. Hopefully yourselves can get a big win on Friday night as well. We definitely don't want to see Man City win any more than they have been recently. But no, big cheers for the comment. Looking at the last 3 games, then Wicklow versus Kildare. You know what? Like, it's when you look at Kildare's form in Division 2, nearly getting relegated, and you look at the progress that Oisin McConville has made for Wicklow. Like, do you know what the thing is? Like, I think Wicklow might, like, I think we would probably both go with Kildare, but I think Wicklow have got, like, you just never know in Leinster. Like, Kildare lost to Carlow a couple of years ago, so why can't they lose to Wicklow this weekend in Ockram as well?
Yeah. The only thing is that even as bad as Kildare were in some of their games in the Allianz League, they still did enough to keep themselves up, and they, beating Meath on the last day the way that they did showed that, look, okay, they haven't completely lost their minds. They still know how to turn it on every now and then. I would be very surprised if they lose to Wicklow, because, look, even though Wicklow looked really, really good, Wicklow's most impressive victory, I thought, in the Allianz League was against Laois when they went away to O'Moore Park and beat Laois. That was the most impressive victory. And I think Kildare beat Laois very comfortably. So this is levels above. If they manage to go and beat Kildare, that is hats off. Oisin McConville, Armagh picking up the phone to him tomorrow, especially if they lose to Cavan. But yeah, no, I would go for Kildare to win this one.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think like the important point to remember is that Kildare do have great players and they do have a good squad there. And it was only a year ago that they were beating the likes of Dublin in the league and, putting it up to the likes of Kerry. So I think the standards are higher, and I think they will have enough to get the better of Wicklow as well. Louth versus Westmeath. Like, interesting one as well. This is another one of those games.
It's the hardest one to call. This is the hardest one to call, for sure.
A couple of months ago, I think we all probably would have went for Westmeath here. But when you look at Louth's league form, and when you look at, I suppose, Westmeath in Division 3, been a little bit poor, but at the same time, like, Westmeath have got a very, like, if to judge both sides on paper, you'd probably say Westmeath have the better players. But I think Louth have done better under Mickey Hart this year, and they probably have the better management to see them through as well, in fairness.
They definitely have the better management. There's no doubt about that. Look, Desi Dolan is, like, his GA knowledge is way above anything I could ever have, but it's his first year in the job. Mickey Hart, his CV speaks for himself, like the stuff that man has achieved, and to go from Tyrone to Louth and to show that it's not just because he has a top team at his disposal, but he's able to do it with a team that were in Division 4, get back-to-back promotions up to Division 2, and really look very competitive against Dublin for long periods of that game. And, the goal by Liam Jackson was a real, like, oh, wow, this game is right in the melting pot here. This game against Westmeath is really, really hard to call, because Westmeath do tend to switch it on when the championship comes around, more so than they do in the league. Like, just look at the Tailteann Cup, for example. I wouldn't have backed them to beat Cavan in the league, but then they beat them in the Tailteann Cup final. Like, it was one of those things where their forwards in the Tailteann Cup were scintillating. Ronan O'Toole, Luke Loughlin, Lorcan Dolan, John Heslin, Kieran Martin coming off the bench in the Tailteann Cup final was superb. They'd switched it on. If they switch it on in this game, they beat Louth. I do believe that. But it's, what you're getting with Louth. What you're getting with Louth in this Mickey Hart team. That they're going to bring an 8 out of 10 performance at least every single week. With Westmeath, their Allianz League was summed up in the way that how they absolutely annihilated Antrim, but then lost to Fermanagh when it was all on the line. So it's massively hard to tell which Westmeath team is going to show up.
Yeah, no, it is a fair point. In fairness, GA Statsman says here, well, lads, Sligo just beat Galway in the Connacht under-20. They are coming back. Yeah, I just seen that there. Was trying to keep an eye on it as we were doing the stream. So that probably blends into what we were saying earlier. Like, I think, there's a lot of, that's back-to-back under-20 titles, Connacht titles as well. So they're definitely there's definitely a lot of good things happening around Sligo football. In fairness, Meath man says all the Meath fans will be keeping an eye on this game. If Westmeath win, Meath are guaranteed All Ireland football. If Louth win, they probably beat us. I'd still fancy Westmeath to beat Meath, though, to be honest with you. I think the winner of this goes on to beat Meath, in my opinion. But what are you thinking anyway? Like, who do you think will come through this?
I said Westmeath in my preseason preview, and I'm going to go with them to win just about. It was a controversial one at the time because they predicted it straight after the Dublin game. But I just feel Westmeath have two strong forwards. They've too much talent up there, and given the fact that Louth are without Samuel Roy, like if it comes down to a shootout, Westmeath have the faster guns, and I'm going to go Westmeath to get over the line. Very narrowly, though. Very narrowly.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fair point. Like, I think Westmeath do have the better players, but I'd probably back Louth, I think, by the smallest of margins, in my opinion. Last but not least is Offaly versus Meath. Another real tricky one for Meath, and this could be a real testy one. But I think at the same time for Colm O'Rourke, like, they haven't won in the last 5 games in the league. So I mean, if they were to lose this, like, it just wouldn't be a good look for Meath football at all.
It's mad because Meath have had probably the weirdest year I've seen now. And Meath, in general, over the last few years, have been the weirdest team to watch in terms of like their trajectory. It always seems to be 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And for Colm O'Rourke to say, no, I've no interest in that job, and then all of a sudden he takes it. It must have been, he must have looked at the plans that was in place for Meath. Either they showed him the plans for the job and they blew him away and he thought, I have to be a part of this, or they showed him who was going to get the job if he didn't take it, and he was thinking, here, I'll take it so he doesn't get it. Like, that type of attitude. But yeah, then to see the first 2 games, Meath hit 3 goals against Cork and looked brilliant. Then they hit 4 goals against Clare and they looked brilliant going forward. And then Derry just broke things in Meath that still haven't been fixed. Like, that was one of the hardest games of Gaelic football to watch. That was like watching Khabib fight someone in the UFC, where he just holds them down and beats them up for 25 minutes. Like, it was just annihilation. They got absolutely destroyed. And then to see how they got beaten by Louth, they got beaten by Kildare in a game that really, really mattered. It's really hard to see how far they can bounce back, how much they can get back to those first 2 games against Clare and against Cork, where they looked like really, really exciting, and they looked like they were going to play really, really nice attacking football. And this is a real tricky one, because Offaly will go for it. There's no doubt about that. Offaly have great forwards, Bernard Allen, Jack Bryant, and Anton Sullivan and the like. So it's definitely a tricky one. It's one, if they don't come at least 8 out of 10, they're going to lose.
What do you think then? Can Offaly pull it off, or should Meath have too much?
I'm going to go Meath. They're really on the line here. They really are on the line here. And it's not often that you would see a manager be under pressure after 1 year in the job. But this year, Paddy Carr didn't even last a month. So things seem to be a bit different this year. And if Meath are in the Tailteann Cup and they're up against the likes of Cavan and Down and Fermanagh in the Tailteann Cups, it's not even a guarantee that they win it. Yeah. O'Rourke would be really close to the door.
I think so as well. Yeah, like I think like to have gone 6 games without a win as well, another defeat. But yeah, I do back Meath as well. Like, I think goals, I think will be crucial for Meath. I think that is their main strength, and I can see them opening up Offaly. Like, I could see a game where Meath probably win this 3-10 to Offaly, who score 112 or something points, like that. Yeah, or 16 points. Like, I could see Meath winning it by that margin. Meath man says, yeah, but if Westmeath go through, Meath still get to play All Ireland because Westmeath already have a spot in Tailteann. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Westmeath won the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah, but I think because Westmeath already have a guaranteed spot, and the fact that they'd be playing, well, I think it depends, because I think if Louth, it would depend on.
It is confusing as hell, isn't it? Like,
yeah. Well, it would be Westmeath versus Meath, and I think if Westmeath go into a provincial final, I think then it goes to the next National League
Oh
team.
yeah.
Or does it go to Meath? I actually don't know, to be honest with you. I have no clue.
Because then, because I think it's like if Clare, what I saw was if Clare, Westmeath are in the All Ireland,
yeah,
because they won the Tailteann, then Clare would have been in the Tailteann Cup if they didn't beat Cork and Limerick. Well, they haven't beaten Limerick yet, but we're predicting that they will. If Clare make it to the Munster final, then it's Meath next in the hot seat to go into the Tailteann Cup. But if Meath make the Leinster final, then Kildare are in the Tailteann Cup. I think that's how it goes. There's a good video by GAA room, Shawnee Ryan, like that explains it really, really well. But yeah, it's mad when you throw together all these potential scenarios. But I don't think Meath are fully in the clear, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so. Like if they get through, if they just win the next 2 games, they will be. But
yeah, just take it out. Just put it in their own hands. Just
put it in their own
win
hands,
2 games and you're safe. Like
yeah.
that's a
yeah. GA Satsman said Meath are in the Tailteann if they don't reach Leinster final. Simple, definitely smarter man than both of us anyway.
There you go. The man himself said it.
Yeah, I suppose then we'll finish up player of the week and I suppose bet of the week. What are you thinking?
Bet of the week is throw €1 on Tipperary, and if they win that game, well then you've a night out sorted. You don't have to pay nothing. But an actual bet, I think a cheeky bet on Down to beat Donegal could definitely be a shout because Donegal are absolutely all over the place. Yeah, I'd be sticking down money for sure on Galway to beat Roscommon. That's a controversial one, but I think you could get good odds on that. And player of the week is really, really hard to call. Player of the week.
There'll be a lot of them, in fairness.
There'll be a lot of them. I don't think that'll come from the Kerry-Clare game. The Kerry-Tip game, sorry. Because I'm trying to look here, what would be an upset and then go from the upset. I think maybe if Louth beat Westmeath, I think you could have like a Conor Grimes, a Liam Jackson, a Darragh McConnon. One of them could definitely be a shout to win the man of the match there and, produce an outstanding performance. Whereas if it was the other way around, you'd be looking at Heslin, Ronan O'Toole, Sam McCartan as being, standout contenders. I will pick, based off the fact that I predicted Down to beat Donegal, I'll pick Liam Kerr, their midfielder. Really, really strong player. So I'll pick him to have a big game for Down and potentially pick up the player of the match and player of the weekend. Yeah,
no, I think that's a very fair assumption. Yeah, I think for player of the week, I've gone for Stephen Campbell. I think for Armagh, I think that could be, for them getting over the line against Cavan. I think a
very good show.
Especially
with Reno now.
Yeah, because they're gonna need something. Even Conor Turbo as well mightn't be a bad show. And then bet of the week, like I don't know, like if I had some money that I could afford to lose, I'd maybe throw something on New York just for the crack.
Maybe, yeah.
Like I'd imagine you would get good odds on them beating Sligo in fairness. But to be fair, I don't think it will happen. So yeah, like I'd probably go with Down to beat Donegal maybe is the bet of the week. But yeah, cheers, Seamus for coming on. I suppose remind everyone where they can find your own podcast and your own socials.
Yeah, so it's just at Play on GAA across all social media platforms: Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, the whole shebang. So we're trying to take it up another notch now. We're looking into doing more content on Squelga as well, which now that I'm done the bulk of my college assignments, I'll have a little bit more time. So thank God they're done. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on again, Aaron.
Perfect. No bother at all. Well, look, cheers anyone who tuned in. If you could hit the like button and subscribe, will be very much appreciated. And if you can share this out to your friends and family, that will be great. And we will see you all later.